Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the STEM Postgraduate Virtual event. My name is Philip Lawton. I'm an assistant professor in global urbanism within E3 and situated within the School of Natural Science. And I'm going to be hosting our session this morning. Just to give you a quick overview in terms of what the E3 is about. So it's our Engineering, Environment and Emerging Technologies Institute. And in essence, really what we're trying to do is we're trying to ask, if you can see the image in front of you, you see the city of Dublin with Trinity in the foreground spread out before you. And most of what you see is obviously the historic university. And so really what E3 is about is trying to ask, well, you know, what, as it says here, in a world of change, how can Trinity make change in the world? And so it's about the university being proactive in terms of new technologies and how we use technologies to make our world better. And so the E3, essentially, as it says here, it's about balanced solutions for a better world. And so it's bringing together computer science, engineering, and the School of Natural Science as well. And so it's a very dynamic kind of idea. It's very original in terms of trying to bring together different elements of the university, a number of different schools in terms of with different approaches, different disciplines coming together to try and come together in order to create new solutions that will make our world a better place. And so for those of you who are familiar with the campus, you will see at the moment that there's a significant amount of building work going on at the moment. And so as well as being, you know, in the last number of years, E3 has become established, but really what we're kind of looking towards in the future, and for those of you who are applying for courses in the future, we're looking forward to our new Martin Norton E3 Learning Foundry. And essentially this is going to be a new innovative type of space that is going to, as it says here, create a seamless and innovative integration, provide for the seamless and innovative integration of teaching, project work, and research. And so the idea of that is that it's to open in 2024. And so for somebody who teaches within E3, and I teach on the MSc in Smart and Sustainable Cities, this type of environment is going to provide the ideal type of world in which we can enhance student learning, bringing together new technologies, a comfortable working and learning environment, and essentially allow students as well to rub shoulders with each other, to bump ideas off each other, and to create and to essentially produce the type of knowledge that we're looking for in terms of E3. And so again, as it says here, the aim is for it to give the students the skills they need to tackle the global challenges of today and tomorrow. And so Trinity, as a university situated within Dublin, with a reach in Dublin, is a local university, but also a global university as well. And so, as I said earlier on, we have a number of different schools that come together under the umbrella of the E3. And so the School of the School of Computer Science and Statistics. And so there's a number of different streams that they offer, such as data science, intelligence systems, future network systems, augmented reality. And then they also offer an MSc in interactive digital media. The School of Engineering provides an MSc in biomedical engineering, MSc in civil engineering with a number of streams for this: environmental, sustainable energy, structural and geotechnical, and then transport as well. They also have an MSc in electronic information engineering with a strand in computational engineering, an MSc in mechanical engineering with a strand in zero carbon technology, and an MPhil music and media technology. So you can see there's a range of different offers on show there as well. The School of Natural Science then has the Masters in Development Practice, the MSc in Biodiversity and Conservation, the MPhil in Environmental History, MSc Environmental Sciences, and then also in terms of the three schools coming together. And this is really, I suppose, our showcase kind of master's programs under the E3 kind of ideal is the MSc in Energy Science, the MSc in Smart and Sustainable Cities, and then coming on stream is the MSc in Statistics and Sustainability as well. So today we're bringing together a number of different people to talk about essentially the role of STEM in postgraduate education in Trinity, to show our offering, and then to offer the opportunity for those of you who are attending today to ask questions both of staff, but then also of people who are recent graduates and people working within industry. And so, as I said earlier on, my name is Philip Lawton. I'm an assistant professor in geography within the School of Natural Sciences. We'll also have Professor Ivana Dusparic. She's the Director of Postgraduate Teaching and Learning at the School of Computer Science and Statistics. Dr. Brian Caulfield, Associate Professor at the Head of Department of Civil, Structural and Environmental Engineering. And we're also joined today by Claudia Bailey. She's the Technology and Engineering Engagement Manager with Smart Docklands. I should also say that Claudia is a recent graduate of the MSc in Smart and Sustainable Cities. We're also joined by two students today. So Ruairí Coppinger, who's the MAI in Engineering, a recent graduate, and then Fanan Biem, who's with our MDP at the moment. So what I'm going to try and start by doing, if I could maybe bring in Ivana first. And so maybe, Ivana, could I ask you to sort of so I'm going to bring in Ivana and then Brian and just ask them to describe a little bit about their, just give a little introduction to your school, little introduction in terms of kind of what you offer, the types of research, the type of teaching, just a kind of a quick comment, essentially, just to kind of give a little bit of background.
Yeah, thank you, Philip. But it is useful to give a bit of context before we go into the overall postgraduate offering. So we are on the bigger side comparing to the size of the schools in Trinity. We're one of the bigger ones. We have about, and these want to be exact numbers because they evolve all the time, but we have about 70 academic staff members. We offer 4 undergraduate programs, about 1,000 students, undergraduates. We offer 4 postgraduate programs, roughly 200, just over 200 in postgraduate space. And we currently have about 120 PhD students, so quite research intense school, which of course this research environment then impacts what kind of programs we offer. So our biggest masters has 4 streams, as we can talk about later, and those are the 4 streams that we are the strongest in research wise. So we're teaching the subjects and the courses that we do research in.
Thanks. And could I ask Brian then to make a quick comment as well?
Sure. Welcome everybody to the event. So I'm the head of civil engineering in Trinity, and I'm part of the School of Engineering. And within the school, again, a similar size to to Ivana's school in terms of the number of academic staff and the number of students. From a PhD perspective, I think we're again comparable to computer science in terms of the numbers that we have. But relative to the postgraduate offering, in the school, in the Department of Mechanical Engineering and Bioengineering, there is an MSc in Biomedical Engineering, and there's some of the world experts in that field. A number of ERC holders are teaching in that MSc. And then also in Mechanical Engineering, there's the MSc in Mechanical Engineering, and there's a new strand with our new chair of Mechanical Engineering, Stephen Spence, on zero carbon technology, and that's a really exciting MSc. Then there's an MSc also in Electronic Information Engineering and Computational Engineering in the Department of Electronic Engineering, and they also have an MPhil in Music and Media Technologies. And then in my own department, we have a very long established MSc in Civil Engineering, and it breaks down into 4 different strands that kind of relate to the research areas that we work in: environmental engineering, sustainable energy, structural and geotechnical, and then my own area, which is transportation engineering. And from my department within civil engineering, a lot of the modules that are offered on our postgraduates are kind of put into the other MSCs and the multi-school MSc offerings that Phil mentioned.
Thanks, Brian. Before I go on, I mean, I'm not going to kind of give too much detail in terms of the School of Natural Sciences, but just as I'm the representative from the School of Natural Sciences, we offer a number of different masters, as I said earlier on. So we have MSc in Environmental Sciences, MPhil in Environmental History, the MSc in Biodiversity and Conservation, which is a long-running and very successful master's, and then the Masters in Development Practice. And so it brings together, so we have geography, botany, zoology, and geology under the umbrella of the School of Natural Sciences. And so there's a lot of cross-fertilization of different ideas before we even get into the kind of more kind of interdisciplinary approach of the E3. And so in a way, I suppose, kind of just bringing together the comments from the three schools and just to open up the discussion a little bit, I'd like to ask our current students and then also our recent graduates what they feel, kind of their education from Trinity. And I might bring, just to tee up Ruairí into this first, in terms of, as a recent graduate and somebody now who's gone into the workforce, what do you feel Trinity has offered you, has given you in terms of kind of a skill set for the real world, really?
Yeah, I would say possibly one of the biggest advantages that Trinity gave me when I entered the workforce was adaptability. I graduated in 2018 with the Master's in Mechanical Engineering, and at the end of the day, you do a lot of very different things as you're going through your final 2 or 3 years of engineering. And sometimes, these things might not be applicable to every single position in the workplace. The Trinity can only prepare you so far. But I found that being put into many different situations like this, it's increased my adaptability to problems in the workplace, especially when I work in a consultancy job. So a lot of various projects pop on my desk every few months or so. So it gives me a different viewpoint on a lot of these projects that I tackle.
Great, thanks. And so Claudia, can I bring you in on that question? A similar question to you as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So hi, everyone. I'm Claudia, and I graduated from the Smart and Sustainable Cities Masters last year. And what really helped me transition into the working world is that when you're at Trinity, you're getting everyone with so many diverse backgrounds. I think specifically in our program in the Smart and Sustainable Cities for the first year, we had people with so many different backgrounds and expertise, and you really get to learn how to cross-communicate across different fields and different understanding levels. So that's helped me transition really well into my job with Smart Docklands, where I'm liaisoning between a whole bunch of different stakeholders and being able to talk to people who are maybe a little more tech heavy or people who are more on the engagement side, and just being able to, have an understanding of what I'm working on, and also just being able to put my hand in many different pots on what everyone else is working on, and just to bridge those gaps between people.
Great, thanks, Claudia. Fanan, I suppose you're in a slightly different scenario. You're well, not quite mid, you're a little bit beyond mid of your master's now at this stage. So in a way, what do you feel it's offering you this year, or kind of what sort of skill set do you think, kind of key things you feel you're learning this year that will help you in terms of your future career?
Thank you, Philip, and absolutely. One of my motivations for coming to Trinity, and particularly for the Masters in Development Practice, was really the multidisciplinary approach to learning. And it was also a strong motivation for applying for the E3 scholarship as well, because it really emphasized that sort of multidisciplinary approach. And what I found really interesting is being able to dabble into disciplines, because I had been a practitioner prior to starting my master's, and just that possibility of dabbling into disciplines that I had not had prior engagement with has been really critical. And I think it's going to be very helpful as I transition out of the master's, subsequently going back into the working world, being able to have the interconnectedness between disciplines and be able to have a more sort of diverse view on how to address sustainable development challenges as is being promoted through the masters. I think so far that has been one of the key points that has stood out for me over the course of the first and the second semester so far.
Great, thank you. I mean, Ivana or Brian, do you feel, kind of from a teaching and learning perspective, do you think that there's anything to add to what our students and previous students have commented on there?
I will quickly follow up on what Claudia was saying, because I teach, one of the postgraduate modules that I teach is artificial intelligence, which is taken by students as an elective from about 10 different streams and 4 different schools. And all those people work together on the assignments and are in the same classrooms and discussions in the lectures. So it is that interdisciplinarity and the range of backgrounds that people are exposed to that really, I'm glad to see kind of firsthand that it's benefiting the students.
Thanks.
Yeah, I suppose from my perspective, from the School of Engineering, one of the things that I really enjoy about teaching on the modules that go across all of E3 is that, you know, the big global challenges that we face around climate action and equality, they can't be answered by any one discipline on its own, and we can't work in silos. And I work with both Phil and Ivana on research outside of the teaching stuff as well, and we understand that. And I think that's one of the really good things about the E3 program, is that we bring people in together. So in my field in transport, you know, it's not the engineers that are going to solve all the problems. So we listen to everybody else. And then in those classes where there's a number of different disciplines, we get to see different perspectives. And that's really, really helpful.
Mm. Yeah, no, and that would reflect my own experiences as well. The students, in a way, kind of help each other and engage with each other and bring their own strengths to the masters. In a way, some of the things that you touched upon there kind of bring me to the next question. You know, and in a way, this is again for our students and recent graduates. It's that question of, well, why Trinity? And to pick up on Brian's point there, you know, that we have a global world where students are offered they have a choice of different places to go to. And so what is it about Trinity, in a way, you know, that offers something different, you know, that stood out? So maybe Fanan, I believe you've been in various different kind of institutions before coming to Trinity. So, you know, is there something particular about Trinity that you felt stood out for you?
So thank you, Philip. For me, specifically, what stood out was the research-intensive nature of the program. And I had always regarded Trinity from my research when I was looking into schools to pursue a master's program. What I was looking out for specifically was a research-intensive kind of learning. And also the points which the previous panelists have also alluded to, which is a multidisciplinary approach to learning. Because and a very important point was made that the global challenges that we face now cannot be addressed by one single discipline alone. And that is a core thread that runs through the E3 initiative. And I think that is really important and was a major motivation for my choosing Trinity to pursue my master's, a research-intensive institution, and also a multidisciplinary approach to learning and addressing challenges, the global challenges.
Great. Thanks very much. And Claudia, for yourself?
Yes, so my background before I started my master's in Trinity was in, actually it was in communications. And I was always told, great, you have a skill set in communications, but what do you want to communicate about? Where do you want to make that difference? So when I found the Smart and Sustainable Cities course, that was my intersection of interests and why I wanted to come to Trinity, to get that skill set in sustainability and cities, and to learn more about like urbanism, and to bring that into my own toolkit that I could go out into the world and use. And I also wanted to come to Trinity because I saw that Trinity it's a campus and it's great, and you have that educational living and learning environment, but it goes beyond the walls of the university, and very much in that Dublin is like, it's like a living classroom. I did my dissertation research on walkability in Dublin, and I know a lot of people in our program for my year also focused on Dublin as their city. And I think it provides so many opportunities for research, and it's just very interesting that there's so many opportunities for, at least in like sustainability initiatives, that can be applied to Dublin or to be examined that have already been implemented in Dublin. So I think it's that the education kind of goes outside of the university even, and that was a huge factor for me.
Great. Thanks, Claudia. And Ruairí?
Yeah, so I basically will just echo what Claudia said there. I'm from South Dublin, and when I was choosing which university to go to, the opportunities that Trinity offered were by far the reason that I chose to go to Trinity. It is nestled in the city centre, and while you might be in a classroom or outside, it all feels like one area, one sort of. It doesn't feel like a campus. It feels like it's just part of the city. So it's a heartbeat in the city centre. And I found that the opportunities within Trinity were unmatched across the country. So
very good. As an urban geographer, you're speaking to my heart here. If you don't mind, I might stay with you for a second, actually, yep. and kind of go back, you know, kind of through the three students and recent graduates. So I think a lot of people who are here today, you know, would like to know maybe what, you know, that kind of thing of a day in the life, you know, of what it's like when you are, you know, on an average day, let's say in the middle of term, you know, what it's like to study at Trinity. So to give a little bit more detail on that.
Yeah, so as I said before, I graduated in 2018. So it's not that long since I graduated, but my memory can still be a bit fuzzy. But the average day was, to my memory, quite a challenging but enjoyable experience. You know, you start off, I'm going to go like in an average day in my master's year, for example, would have started off the day probably going to a couple of lectures and then spending a lot of time working on a thesis that ended up doing quite well. And we spent just, sorry, let me think. We would have spent a lot of our day probably interacting among other students, collaborating work, trying to solve these problems that I think every student struggles at when you come to your final year. You've got your homework, you've got your tutorials and everything to work through, and then working till the late hours of the evening trying to get simulations finished, and then heading home after that. That was my average day.
Sure, yeah. So a busy but rewarding kind of day.
Incredibly rewarding. So yes, it was challenging. Every day was a challenge, and every day had proposed new challenges to us. And I think that the most rewarding thing at the end of every day was going home satisfied with the work you'd finished, and also preparing yourself for the next day's work.
Great, thanks very much.
No problem.
And Claudia, same question for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think mine was only a year ago. But I think my main takeaway for my master's degree is that the people really made the program. There were 14 of us my year, and so the average day, again, you know, you start off with your lectures, but what we were learning and what we were discussing in our lectures, they went outside of the classroom. They were most frequently followed by a coffee immediately after each lecture. And that continuation of the collaboration and the discussion and just really getting on with the people who you're living and learning with is so crucial into building that like great educational experience. And it really helped that while all of us in the program were from completely different backgrounds, everyone had come to Trinity and come to this program for a reason. Either they were passionate about sustainable cities, they wanted to learn more. So everyone had that like dialogue going on all of the time. And it was really great that like further in, even when classes ended and it was the summertime and we were all working in the postgraduate reading room, writing our dissertations, that sense of community and collaboration continued with a majority of people remaining in Dublin to write their dissertations, and the coffee breaks and the discussions continued during that time. And I don't think I would have been able to get through writing my dissertation without having and offering the support from my peers and to my peers and my friends in the program. And I think that was just outstanding. That made each day so exciting to come into.
Great. I think there's a lot of stuff in there we might pick up on in a second, but I'll bring Fanan in first and then maybe come back to some of the things you raised there.
Yes, thanks, Philip. So I'm currently, as you mentioned previously, I'm currently on the Masters in Development Practice program, and it's actually quite intensive, but also very rewarding. And what is a typical day will start with a class, which would usually start around 10 for 2 hours or 3 hours, and then we have another class in the afternoon for another 2 or 3 hours. So every day is fully packed. Some months are busier than others. February has been a particularly busy month, but March would be a little bit lighter. In terms of the workload, there seems to be a huge concentration on group activities, which I think is a really good approach to learning, because when you move into the practical world, you really have to learn how to interact with people and work with people from diverse backgrounds. So there's a huge amount of group activities which we have to do in between classes. And that takes a huge chunk of the time between classes as well. And also it's really interesting because most of us come from different backgrounds, and it's always a very enriching experience to just learn different perspectives and share ideas with people from different backgrounds. I come from a law background. I'm a lawyer, and I'm currently doing the Masters in Development Practice, which has modules ranging from civil engineering to climate change, to smart and sustainable cities, areas where I had no prior engagement with. So it's been really enriching, and we have also fellow classmates from engineering backgrounds, from geography backgrounds, from biological backgrounds. So it's really interesting in that way. And I also spend a lot of time, we spend a lot of time collectively in the postgraduate reading room as well, just like Claudia mentioned, which is a really nice architectural structure on campus. So yeah, there's a lot of that engagement in terms of group work, and also just learning from each other. And yeah, about 4 hours or 6 hours of lectures a day during the busy periods.
Great, thank you very much. I mean, I think you're, again, speaking to a lot of the things that we would think about a lot, in terms of how we're trying to prepare our students for the world, and that kind of a question of dialogue is really, really important, and bringing together different disciplines, as all of you have sort of highlighted, and how that helps equip you in a sense. So say, Rory, as a graduate from 2018 or so, I mean, can you describe kind of your current work in a way, and perhaps it's tacit, perhaps it's just sort of so embedded that you don't think about your learning in terms of what you're doing now. But I'm interested to know kind of what your role is now, and how it relates to your learning.
Yes, absolutely. So my current role is primarily as a water engineer. I deal in both fresh and wastewater treatment. And yes, absolutely, my education at Trinity was valuable. I have to say, fluid dynamics and that side of things, I deal with a lot of water calculations, pipework calculations, that sort of thing. So I was well prepped stepping into this role, and I guess I didn't start off in this role, however. I started off as more of a generic mechanical engineer, you might say, kind of plopped into different projects as just I say I was the token mechanical engineer. You often need one on the team, but they end up doing a lot of civil engineering work. But at the end of the day, I settled into my role, my current role, and I found my niche, and I found where I'm excelling at, and it would not have been possible without my experience, particularly in my final year and final 2 years, I guess, in Trinity.
Great, thanks. And Claudia, same for you. I mean, you've gone very seamlessly from an MSc in Smart and Sustainable Cities to working in Smart Docklands with Smart Dublin. So it's kind of an ideal transition in a way.
I feel very fortunate. So I mean, through the master's, we had our placement, which is where Phil would place us in, different professional or working positions during the second semester. And I was placed with 3 other of my peers in Smart Dublin, which is the Smart City initiative that's in kind of like through Dublin City Council. So it's like a coalition of the 4 local authority areas surrounding Dublin. And so in my work, my internship in Smart Dublin, I really got to meet people, meet the regional director, and form that networking. Networking is key with everyone who's working on those initiatives there. And we worked on the Smart Mobility Hub, which was a great application of, alternative forms of mobility across Dublin, because that is a issue area that is affecting Dublin. But during the summer, actually, when I was writing my dissertation, a job opportunity popped up with Smart Dublin for a technology and engagement role, which I feel very fortunate to have been selected for. And so currently what I am working on is through Smart Docklands, we work a lot in engagement in the Docklands area and also just in the greater Dublin area. So my current project is working to upskill local authority staff members in Dublin City Council on different like smart city themes. The current one I'm working on is in connection with UN Habitat. So we are working on upskilling local authority staffers on digital rights education and what digital rights mean to them in their role as a city, a city employee, which is an uphill battle to take to really engage people about digital rights and smart technology. But I think it's it's right where I want to be on taking all the skills and knowledge that I have about like smart cities and sustainability initiatives and, my background in communication skills, and bringing them both together to bridge that kind of sustainability education gap between workers and the upcoming technology that's going on in the cities. So I get to sit kind of right in that middle there and work to work to communicate all of those things to the staffers. And I'll have more projects going on.
Brian
That's the
and
one
Anna
I'm
on
currently
this?
working.
Oh, sorry.
Oh.
Sorry, I think my connection jumped for a second.
Oh, you're fine.
So just to bring in Brian and Ivana on this, I mean, I think for all of us, it's fair to say that, education doesn't stop, at the classroom. It doesn't stop when students graduate. And I certainly continue to learn from my students as well. If either or both of you have comments to make on kind of connections or networks to pick up on Claudia's point there as well, in terms of kind of after students graduate.
I think those connections are vital, Phil, and it's one of the things that I suppose I've been lucky enough to have. Any of my graduates, say PhDs or master's students, I always end up around the table with them afterwards, working on different projects, and that's great to see. That you can see what we're offering in Trinity is making such a great impact. But Claudia is correct. It is the connections. It is meeting people. It is knowing, who's got that data. How do I figure out how to do that? And I can't do that. Who can do that? And that's fantastic. And that happens within the classroom as well. How students, especially in the interdisciplinary classes, when certain students will have more strengths than others. And that's I think one of the really nice things about the programs that span the 2 schools or 3 schools.
Great, thanks. And Ivana?
Yeah, similarly here, given that I'm in computer science and statistics, and given the very intense presence of multinational companies, as well as a lot of smaller startups in this space in Dublin, a lot of our graduates do stay around, and a lot of our graduates do collaborate with us, either on research projects later, or would be coming in to give talks in our lectures, or similarly, we'd be invited to events in their companies. So it's a very, very strong connection with alumni.
Great, thanks very much. To shift the topic a little bit, I mean, I think one thing that's really important, and we have a lot of students and potential students who are tuning in today from across the world. And so Fanan, to go to you first with this is just the experience of Dublin as a place, as a city. I was really taken in earlier on when some of you pointed out, that thing about kind of the connection between the university and the city, kind of going for a coffee, that sort of stuff. Again, the day-to-day life of Dublin as a place.
Yes, absolutely. For me, it was the first time coming to Dublin in September last year. I live in Switzerland. And it was, what I really found striking was how just multicultural it is. And just walking down the street, the amount of French and Portuguese and Spanish I heard people speaking, I was like, wow, this is a really multicultural city. So it just really made me feel comfortable as well, being in the city. And of course, the location of the university right in the city center. For example, yesterday I had to get a book, which I have to read for one of my courses, and I was recommended a bookstore, and basically I just had to step out like 5 minutes walk out of campus, and I was able to get to the bookstore to get the book. So it was just really, it's just that the accessibility of the campus to main attractions or things you would like to do is also really important. So you don't really feel detached from the city. And of course, I live in a student accommodation about 15 minutes away from Trinity. So that is also really nice in terms of social activities. There's also tons of activities that you can undertake over the weekend or in the evenings. So it's just that vibrancy of the city and just the multicultural nature of it that makes international students particularly feel very much at ease when you arrive. That's what really has stood out for me.
Great, that's really nice. I mean, the vibrancy thing is really important. Claudia, I'll bring you in on the same sort of question.
Yeah, absolutely. So I moved here in August 2021. I'm from Washington, D.C., so I moved here from the U.S. And yeah, anyone who's on this call who's like, should I just pack up my suitcase and a backpack and move to a country where I don't know anyone? Yes, wholeheartedly. I did it. It works out fine. I promise you. Again, I got really lucky with the great people in my program. And I also, during my master's, I also lived in a student accommodation building. So as mentioned, that's a great way to kind of expand your network and meet people, because you all have your own rooms, but then you're sharing a kitchen and it's a great space. And I met other students from other programs at Trinity in my student accommodation as well. The city it's as much as you make it to be. It has all of the opportunities to meet new people, to do group events. For example, one of my friends is a very passionate cyclist in the city. So she linked me into a once a month critical mass cycling event where you blast pop music and cycle through the city to promote cycling lanes, which is great. And it's things like that I think, people everyone's involved in their own little thing, whatever they're passionate about. And there's so much friendliness and openness to just, hey, I'm doing this really cool thing, come join me. And, I found my things that were really cool. So I brought people together to do that. And in my opinion, Dublin's very walkable. You can go wherever you need to go. And the friendliness cannot be overstated. Everyone is just very friendly and welcoming in all roles. So do it, pack your suitcases, take the leap. It's incredibly worth it.
Great, thanks. Ruairí, I mean, in a way, just before I continue with a similar question, I mean, did you stay in Dublin after finishing? Or?
Yeah, well, initially I moved abroad for a very short time. I had a position abroad and then that kind of fell through, and then I went down to Cork briefly, but I'm back up in Dublin, and I've been in Dublin since May 2019, and I only started working properly in the end of 2018. But yes, so I have to kind of echo what everyone else said about the question. I'm living in Dublin. I'm from Dublin, so I didn't have quite the travel to Dublin aspect. But even living in Dublin, it really you're in the city centre when you're in Trinity, and there's constant activity going on. There's constant opportunities to get involved in a lot of very different things. The societies throughout Trinity were a great starting point for anyone coming to Trinity. No matter what year you're coming in at, I think getting involved in at least one or two of them was very important to kind of just to get to meet people, get to know what sort of things are out there. And then by virtue of being in the city centre, then you can go outside of campus and do the same thing. You can join other sort of clubs or membership areas that just have your own interests in mind, and you can pursue your own hobbies and talents, and it's very rewarding.
Great. Thanks very much. No problem. I mean, in a way, a lot of this discussion is also pointing in, just to bring Brian and Ivana back in, is that, and it's policy as well, is that desire for different places to attract and retain talent. And so, the promotion of these masters is about attracting good, top quality students who are interested and engaged to learn about various different disciplines, take an interdisciplinary approach, as we talked about earlier on. And so perhaps, and I'm kind of going to make an assumption that certainly a lot of students who get in touch with me about the MSc in Smart and Sustainable Cities are looking to start a research career. And so Brian and Ivana, do you find a lot of students who come on to your masters then kind of, continue and take an interest in the topic and use it as a stepping stone into kind of further research as well beyond the masters, if you see what I mean?
Could I just quickly follow up on the previous point that the students were saying about staying in Dublin after masters and why coming to Dublin? I came to Dublin 3 months short of 20 years ago to do masters. So that's a case in point. With respect to our students who stay want to engage in research, due to scale of the programs we run, so in computer science, we have especially our masters with 4 streams, we have about 200 master's students entering every year. And not everyone wants to do research. A lot of people want to get masters and get a well-paid job in one of the big tech companies in Dublin, but a lot of them do want to engage in research, and there's a lot of opportunities to stay for PhD programs. Trinity hosts leads one of the big national centers for research training and is involved in other 2 in the areas of future communication networks, augmented virtual reality, artificial intelligence. So there's a lot of opportunity to continue doing research and stay on as a postgraduate. And a lot of those positions would be multidisciplinary, again, across C3 schools. So some of our students in artificial intelligence, Center for Research Training are spanning both natural sciences school and computer science. And one of our big research centers, which is Connect, is based both in engineering and computer science. So a lot of opportunities for research.
Great, thanks. And Brian?
Yeah, I would agree with Ivana that there's huge amounts of, just walking around the campus, like there's huge amounts of opportunities to get involved in research, and Trinity really puts research at the forefront of almost everything that we do and everything we advocate for, and that there is a research element to it. And only this week that the university came out with a very, very strong position on how we support researchers and how we are putting out a living stipend for students to come and do PhDs. So it's the university is definitely behind you, and if it's something that you're ambitious to do, it's something that can happen in Trinity. But even outside of the PhDs and research, a lot of the thesis that the students conduct while on any of the programs that we mentioned earlier are world class. And there was an example this year. One of my students, she published in a journal that has a higher impact than Nature on her master's project. So, you know, the research doesn't always have to be at the PhD level. It can happen at world-class levels underneath that as well. And Ivana's nodding, and you see examples of that in all of the three schools and across the university.
Great. Thanks very much. What I'm going to do now is just move things on a little bit. And I suppose I'll kind of try and draw different people into some of the questions that are coming up within the chat. Some of the questions, I know Nora is here from E3 and she might be able to, some of them are more sort of funding related, but there's some more sort of general questions. And so I'll just try and pick out some of these in the time that we have left, right? So one of the questions here is, could you outline Trinity's industry collaborations, and do students get the opportunity to engage in these? Now, I have some thoughts on this, but perhaps I could draw in student experience or
I think Phil's connection has gone down, so I'll answer the question while it's coming back up. From the School of Engineering's perspective on collaborations with industry, it's very strong. And within engineering, our students in their fourth year, they go out and do industry placements. But then also say in some of the programs that we offer within engineering, and sorry, that's the same with the two other schools, but some of the programs that I would work on within engineering have a number of external experts that come in, industry experts that come in and teach the students. And then it is possible to get involved in industry-based research programs for masters, and then later on for PhD.
Great, thanks, Brian. And Ivana?
We, again, I know I keep repeating this, but given that we are 10 minutes away from numerous IT companies, it is the collaboration with industry is very strong. We would regularly have guest speakers from those companies, and it really helps both us as the lecturer and students kind of get that feel of how what we're teaching now is applicable directly tomorrow in industry, and kind of get that link. For some of our programs for undergraduate and for fifth years, we have direct internships in companies for students. On one-year masters, the period is too short to have internships, but some of the dissertation topics could be done in relation with industry working on the industrial relevant topics.
Great, thank you very much. I can chime in here a little bit as well, in as much as I coordinate the MSc in Smart and Sustainable Cities, and we have a short industry placement. And so, you know, and Claudia, as she outlined earlier on, is an example of somebody who took one of our placements with Smart Dublin and then also became employed by Smart Dublin later on. And so we have a number of different organizations, such as ARUP, for example, whom we directly engage with. And then the students go out to do a placement as one of their core modules. And the idea of that is that they get to experience kind of the real world setting. It's predominantly kind of project based. So they would be given a topic to go and work on and interact with people who are working within that particular area. I mean, Ruairí or Claudia or Fanan, if you have any comments on this, of experiences of, during your time here, please feel free to chime in.
I think that Ivana and Brian have covered it quite well. I don't really have much else to add to that, to be honest.
Great, no problem. Thanks. One of the things, and just to open it up again, is and maybe maybe Claudia could answer this, having recently experienced a master's under the umbrella of E3, and it's a great question here. Could someone talk about how E3 fits within the three schools and what makes E3 different? And I suppose that question of what makes E3 different is really important.
Yeah, and I'm happy to talk about that. I think the key takeaway there is the collaboration, in that it is so interdisciplinary that I never in my wildest dreams thought I would ever take any form of an engineering course, but I did, and I learned from it, and I gained that, that knowledge. And I'm in no definition an engineer at all, but I understand what's happening and how that, skill set is important, as I go out into the world and maybe have to talk to people who are the engineers, who have that skill set, and I'm talking to them and I'm working with them on projects. So, I think the interdisciplinary it's the best thing, because you're in classes or taking modules that you might not have considered before, and you're talking with people with different backgrounds. And I think what a big challenge in my workplace now is we're working on how do you unsilo everything, right? In the public sector, how do you get people to talk across those channels? And the fact that the E3 initiative just allows you to be in an unsiloed space where everyone is collaborating together will translate incredibly well into the job market in the future in Dublin or in any other place.
Great. Thanks, Claudia. Ivana or Brian, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I really like that question. I think Claudia gave a very good answer to it. And I think to go back to your very first slide about how Trinity, Trinity education can change the world, that again, it's the big problems that we face. It's climate change. It's all of these big problems, and we don't have solutions. We've never come up with solutions in silos, and that's why it's great to be able to interact with all the other disciplines. And it's not something that is kind of, we stick on a badge and say it's E3 and, it's a tokenism thing. It really works. And as I said, the two other academics on this call I'm collaborating with at the moment, and it goes right across the three schools. So it's very much a live thing, and it's not something that we pay lip service to. And I think Trinity has backed that up with the programs that it's offering in this space. And it was great to hear Claudia say that about, sitting into an engineering class and then being able to go out and talk to us in engineering about her ideas. And that's what E3 is about. It's about empowering and enabling our graduates to do that type of thing.
Great. Thanks, Brian. Fanan, you wanted to come in on this, I think?
Yes, just a point on industry collaboration and preparing students for the professional world. Within the context of the Masters in Development Practice, what I've found really impressive has been the extensive collaborations with NGOs within Dublin as well as abroad. So a lot of the students on the Masters in Development Practice would like to transition into development professions, such as NGOs or multilateral organizations. And there's an extensive array of information on opportunities that is constantly feeded to us on an almost weekly basis. So we actually have more opportunities than we can actually take up, because part of one of the aspects of the Masters is a field placement, which you can do from April to about August. So a lot of the students, or a lot of my classmates, and are taking up those opportunities already, and it's just really a brilliant opportunity to be able to transition into the working world seamlessly from the Masters.
Great, thanks, Fanan. There's a very interesting question, which is probably specific to Ivana, but others could probably come in on this as well. And it's asking, can you explain more on artificial intelligence and its relationships with sustainable engineering? So perhaps Brian or Ivana might have some thoughts on this. I mean, it's a very topical subject at the moment for all sorts of different reasons. And I think presents a lot of challenges in terms of education. So I would certainly be interested to hear a little bit more on this as well.
Yeah, and my answer is it's going to be answer to that question, but at the same time is the answer to question about how E3 is different. My research area, artificial intelligence. I work on developing new algorithms to optimize interactions between large number of entities. Those algorithms are absolutely no use unless I put them to good use, where, for example, optimization of traffic is one such use to ensure less emissions, shorter travel times, and so on. Similarly, for allocation and generation of renewable energy and scheduling the charging and usage of electric devices to coincide with high availability of renewable energy, and lowering the usage at the times when we have to use traditional non-sustainable sources. Those algorithms are applied to balancing that supply and demand. So it is about optimizing the resources that are scarce, that we don't want to waste, or shifting and rearranging the usage to more sustainable sources.
Great, thanks, Ivana. Great. Okay, one of the things, and again, maybe this is more relevant for our students and recent graduates. Somebody's asking, did you join any societies that supported your learning, or maybe to open that question up a little bit, did you join societies kind of more generally throughout your time in Trinity?
I might start with this one. Yes, absolutely. I joined one of the very first things I did when I started in my first year at Trinity was join the Maths Society. And being a mechanical engineer, or going into general engineering at the time, I was keen on it, and I don't think I would have probably gotten through the first couple of years anyway without the support of the society. And yeah, joining societies might be, on the face of it, kind of just about getting together and just playing a few games or having drinks or whatever. But it is actually a community where sometimes if you have a problem, and you're an engineer and most of the people in there might be in science or maths or other fields, but you have a problem that you've encountered in your stream, and you're in the society and you mention it to someone, and they can help out, and they have helped out, and they helped me in my first couple of years, and it was invaluable to sort of set me up on the right step to get me started.
Great, thanks, Rory. And anybody else kind of involved themselves in societies? I know these sort of informal connections make a really important kind of contribution, and so on.
One really great resource that I used, which I don't know if this has been mentioned yet, is the Global Room at Trinity, which is a great resource for all international students. And they put on a lot of great events that, for different things going on in different cultures all over the world. And they're also incredibly helpful if you have any immigration issues or any kind of concerns about like the logistics of moving to Dublin. So their Instagram is great. The people on the team are really, really great. And they, there have been international students coming to Trinity for so many years. So they're just a really, really great resource if you need any assistance for anything.
It's a great point, Claudia. Thanks for raising that. I mean, we're kind of heading towards the end of our webinar, but there's a great question here, which I might use as a kind of an opportunity for closing points, or kind of key kind of takeaways. And it touches upon a lot of what we've been talking about for the last 40 minutes or so. And it asks, do you think E3 graduates are more employable or attractive to employers? And so I suppose we might sort of take, what makes an E3 graduate different? And in a way, as I say, it draws together a lot of what we've said so far. I'll bring Brian or Ivana in on this first, and then the students.
Well, I'll take it, Phil. I think just while I have the floor, there's a lot of questions there about jobs in Ireland and sustainability and in jobs in those areas in Ireland, and Ireland is crying out for people to work in these areas. What makes an E3 graduate different? And I suppose, again, it goes to kind of the Trinity graduate attributes as well that we have, is that, we teach students, or we encourage students to challenge us, challenge each other. And in the E3 kind of ethos is that you're getting education from three kind of very different areas, and it is challenging. And then as a graduate, when you go out, that you've got these skills in different areas, and it's a more kind of rounded graduate that leaves. And they could then work in different areas, and they, as Claudia says, they can speak the languages around engineering or whatever it is that they're working on. And I think that makes a very strong graduate. But that's the type of ethos that we have across all of our programs, whether they're within E3 or they're outside of E3, that the students are rounded and they go out to seek more information and challenge the status quo.
Great, thanks. Anybody else want to come in on that? I think in a way,
yeah.
maybe. Sorry, go on, Claudia. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I was just gonna say, and I know interdisciplinary has been like the word of the hour, but I think that is so key. And I think in a lot of roles that are opening up in these fields and in what could be considered highly technical, individualistic fields, when you're coming into the job market, you know, with some knowledge of computer science, with some knowledge of engineering, with some knowledge of natural sciences and climate change or sustainability or things like that, then you are the change that you want to see in the job market. You are the person who is unsiloing. I know it's a phrase I say a lot, but unsiloing the approaches to these global challenges that we've all discussed. So I think, you know, a university is almost like a microcosm of a city, right? So you're gaining this experience in this kind of like mini environment with like-minded peers, and then you're going out into the world and bringing that change out with you. And I think that is an extremely marketable skill to have.
Great. Thanks, Claudia. I mean, I think, you know, just to kind of sum up and just some of the words that have come up, you know, the interdisciplinarity is really important. Some of you have talked about adaptability. Some of you talked about the importance of diversity, you know, and for me, in terms of my own experiences and engaging with industry, one of the things I know that they're looking for really is that ability to walk into a room and to understand that multiplicity of perspectives. And certainly from, you know, it's now 2 years that I've been working under this umbrella of E3 on the MSc in Smart and Sustainable Cities. And even, you know, kind of for me, I've learned a huge amount about how other disciplines work. And to pick up on Brian and Ivana's points earlier on, you know, we engage with each other. We wouldn't have been sitting in classrooms together before. And so, you know, again, Claudia used that point, unsiloing, and that's a really important element that I think E3 and E3 Masters give students in terms of, you know, their kind of graduate attributes. So I think Nora from E3 is going to come in to wrap things up in a second. From my perspective, just to thank our panelists, to thank Fanan, to thank Ivana, to thank Brian, thank Claudia, and to thank Ruairí. For me, it's been a really interesting discussion over the last hour. I know there's a lot of questions we didn't get to. Hopefully they've been taken note of. Some of them are more specific to particular courses, and I know E3 will follow up on these as well as quickly as they can. So to thank all of you for your attendance from wherever you might be in the world. And we hope to see all of you looking to pursue a master's in Trinity in the coming years. Thank you very much.
So thank you all for joining today. It was a very insightful conversation. So thank you again for all the panelists for their time and participation. So there were lots of questions coming in during the session that we couldn't answer. So shortly, I will share my screen where you can find all the contact information that you might find useful for later on. So there were a couple of questions around funding opportunities and scholarships that we offer for our postgraduate students. So I'm very happy to tell you that we have various opportunities for you. So all the courses that were mentioned today under the E3 program or the E3 initiative, students who have an offer, whether it's a conditional or unconditional offer, are eligible to apply for the E3 scholarship. And again, this is both for EU and non-EU fee-paying students. We have two other scholarships that you might be interested in. One is the Global Excellence Scholarship that is for non-EU fee-paying students. And then we also offer the European Excellence Awards, which is for EU fee-paying students. We encourage students to apply for multiple scholarships. However, please note that you can only receive one at the end. The E3 team, the student recruitment and admissions team, Melanie and myself, we are very happy to schedule a one-on-one call with you. If you would like to discuss our programs in more details, go through the application process, the admission requirements and also scholarships and all that. You can find the link on the screen here where you can book a one-on-one call. Also, as I mentioned, we received lots of questions in the chat during today's session. So unfortunately, we didn't have the time to answer all of them. So please send an email to the e3.team@tcd.ie, and we'll be very happy to answer those questions, even if they are related to more about employability or PhD opportunities. We will be more than happy to answer those. So again, thank you so much for joining today, and thanks again for the panelists for their time. It was a very insightful discussion. Have a great day.